Good morning, everyone. We're just going to take a moment to make sure that we can be heard in the Zoom webinar. Matthew or Stephen or
Yes.
Jake?
Yes, Sam, I can hear you well. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Chair Crandall, we will be able to begin on time.
Long minute here. All right. I think we're ready. Can you hear me? All right, there we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 25th Board of Supervisors meeting. As customary, we'll start with a moment of silence, and for that moment of silence, we will offer that for the domestic violence victims that have been affected. We are doing a proclamation today, but we would like to highlight and emphasize our thoughts in this moment of silence to them. All right, Michael Green, can you lead us in the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next item is our number 4, consideration of extra items not appearing on the posted agenda, and it looks like we have 2. We'll start with the 4.1, which is A, consideration of extra item, and B, administer the oath of office to Governor appointed District 4 Supervisor Michael Green. And 4.2 is conference, this is to add to our closed session, conference with legal counsel existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D1, City of Clear Lake versus County of Lake et al. And so we'll start with 4.1. Yes,
Yes,
CAO.
thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. This item has been submitted as an extra item. The justification for this request to consider on this, I was just looking at Sam. The justification for this request is because this item came to our attention subsequent to the posting of the current agenda and must be acted upon before the next regular meeting. Sorry.
So let's see, open it up to the public briefly, and then we'll go from there. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on this item before we vote on it? Not seeing any or hearing any, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve this as an extra item since it did show up after the posting of the agenda and needs to be acted upon before the next.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. We'll do 4.2 before we go right next to that one. And so this one, I'll read off one. Well, I already read it off. Should I read it off again, Anita?
I don't think so. I can
Okay.
explain it if your chair is all right with
Yes.
This is a matter that came up in regard to ongoing litigation. I was notified after 6 p.m. last night, so obviously well after the posting of the agenda, and it is an item that I would strongly urge your board to consider before the November 1 meeting date because it is time sensitive. So I do believe it meets the criteria to allow an extra closed session item.
Okay. Comments for the board? All right, I'll open it up to the public. And not seeing any hands up, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve this extra item as it came up after the posting of the agenda and needs to be acted upon before the next.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, you're welcome. We'll go ahead and take up 4.1. We'll take up 4.1 immediately, and with that, this extra item is to administer the oath of office to Governor-appointed District 4 Supervisor Michael Green. I know for sure with that, I know, Michael, you wanted to speak beforehand, so I don't know if the board had anything before I call him up, or, you know?
I don't want to slow it down.
Okay.
I wanted to start here because this is more familiar. And I hope to end back on this side of the dais someday. True story, when my mother passed in 2014, we were gathered around the graveside and she had been cremated and we were going to inter her. And I'm speaking very nice words about Mom, and then I stumbled and then I kicked her. I kicked my dead mother's ashes, and she has been haunting me ever since. So if I don't read this today, the haunting will not stop. I do want to say this. My late mother, Carol, was just 31 years old when she wrote this letter to the editor of the Fresno Bee. The year was 1963, and my mother had just appeared before the Fresno County Board of Supervisors, urging them to adopt a redistricting map that better represented minority voters. At the time, she was just a housewife and the mother to 4 children, Diane, 9, my late brother Scott, 7, Michael, myself, 3.5 at the time, and my youngest sister, Linda, who just turned 1. After that board meeting, some nosy reporter from the Bee asked Mom what motivation she had for speaking up before the board. And if you'll indulge me a couple minutes, I'd like to read part of the letter that she wrote in response, but never sent. Let me say a little about the things I believe in. I believe that our system of government is the best that has ever existed on earth. I believe that majority rule is essential, but also that any minority has the right to object to any action or decision made by the majority that infringes on their rights. Further, I have great faith in the individual. I believe that any rational individual, given all the facts, she underlined all, can come to a rational decision. Our jury system is based on this premise, as is our system of free elections. I believe that our elected officials are only limited representatives of the will of the majority, and that their position is a revocable privilege, not an inherent right. I believe that any individual who says you can't fight City Hall without having tried has surrendered part of that heritage of a free society and has, in effect, denied the principle of majority rule in favor of the rule of special interests. It is, after all, our City Hall or county office, paid for by our taxes, and the people that run it are our elected servants. I have also a very personal reason for my interest in this matter. I have 4 children. They will hopefully grow to maturity in this county. In school, they will study our Constitution and system of laws based on the theories of majority rule and equal justice for all. They will look at local government for specific examples. If what they see in local government does not coincide with what is taught in school, which are they more likely to believe, the theory or the actuality? I would like for my children, and all children in Fresno County, to believe, by example of local government, that the majority does rule, that there is equal justice for all, and that the individual has the right and the responsibility to voice an objection to any condition that is at variance with these principles. These are my motives. My actions, I believe, are consistent with them. Thank you, Mom, and thank you for your example and life lessons. These are my motives too, and may my actions on this board be consistent with them.
All right.
Now I'm ready.
And so, there we go. I think we'll come up and conduct the oath of office.
Here?
Yeah, we can do it. I think they usually up here, right? Yeah, that's where we were. Oh, no, she's got that one right there, yeah.
We're going to have this stuff in Lakeport. Taking notes.
So, swear you in, swear at you. Could you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Michael Green,
I, Michael Green,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter. Thank you. Now can I sit?
Got a clip. Oh, yeah.
So your microphone.
Any comments from the board, or did you have more to say? That was a very good, very heartwarming tribute to your mother. It was great.
She was a great role model. I should mention my dad too, but he was the guy wearing the male chauvinist pig necktie. They had an interesting relationship.
Any comments from the board?
Congratulations, Michael. Welcome to the team.
Congratulations. So I'll open it up for the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to have some words? All right. I'm not seeing anyone come up to the microphone or on Zoom. We'll go ahead and continue forward. I didn't know if, Sam, you got everything you needed? All right. Yes, that's what he usually does a photo, so I was like, I didn't.
We'll be here.
He likes doing it in sequence, and, yeah.
So how can we do this?
You want us to stand, or just this is fine? All right. This way.
Good, thank you very much.
Sam?
All right. So the 4.2, we will do a closed session at the end of that. And we will continue on with our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are commonly non-controversial items. However, if there's somebody that has a need to pull and discuss further, we will go ahead and pull that item and either discuss it now or a later time. And if there's anyone from the board that would like to pull one at this time? Not seeing any, I'll open it up to the public. I'm not seeing any online or in Zoom. I'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda items 5.1 through 5.3.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, timed items, public input. And it looks like we have one public input from Greg Bianchini.
Good morning. My name is Greg Bianchini. I live on 13th Avenue in Lucerne. And my issue today is with the needle exchange program that's on our street every Tuesday. And the issue really is with the kids. I don't think that the kids should have to see this every week and walk by this truck, you know, that's passing out drug paraphernalia. And it's just not safe for the kids, and I'm asking you to ask her to please move to a safe area where there's no children and elderly, just to move to a safe area. I think that's reasonable, and it's just not safe for the kids. I started doing drugs very early in my life, and I understand how serious this is. The kids just don't need to see this, and especially I brought a picture of her truck with their banners that say "No more drug war" on the side of her truck, and then there's another sign on there that says "Fix with a friend." I mean, I know what that means. It means get high with a friend. The kids absolutely do not need to see this, and I think that's a reasonable request, just to have her move to a safe spot. And so far I've been here about 9 times now, and I'm just, if you guys could just talk to her and ask her just to move to a safe spot. I think that's reasonable. And I've never ever, the 9 times I've been here, I've never said to shut this program down. I believe in this program. It could work. I mean, I was a drug user myself, so I understand how it works, but just to have her just decide she could just show up, you know, on a public street where there's, I mean, homes with children live there, family members. I mean, some of these people have been there 30, 35, 40 years. I personally, myself, have been there for 9 years, and it's just, something needs to be done. And if you guys could just ask her just to move to a safe spot where there's no kids. I mean, literally, the Tower Mart store, she is set up literally 50 feet away behind the store, and all the kids, you know, well, not all the kids, but I would say most of the kids use that market. You know, they go there, they get their snacks or treats. They shouldn't have to see this program set up there. It's just, every time they do, it's a risk of those kids starting drugs again. I know, because I've been there. You know, I started very young, so. And it's not fair for the parents too. You know, the parents are telling the kids, well, now that on Tuesdays they can't go down to the market. These kids didn't do anything wrong. You know, they've lived. I mean, some of these kids, I've known them their whole lives. Like I said, I've been there for 9 years, and I think that's a reasonable request, just to have her just find a different spot where it's safe, where there's no kids, and she can still help out the drug users.
Thank you, Greg. You can come to a wrap.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Do you guys want to see this picture of the
Johanna will grab it.
on the truck? Yeah, take a look.
Is that a copy, or do you?
Actually, it's her picture that I pulled out. So I didn't take this picture. That's Anita's picture.
Okay. Did you want us to have it, or did you need it back?
I don't need it back. I think you guys need it more than I need it, so.
Okay.
But anyways, thank you for listening
Thank you, Greg.
to me today. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment or public input? And I don't see any online. So we will close this item and move on to our 6.2, which is a presentation of proclamation designating the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Lake County. And Vice Chair Pyska will be reading this proclamation. If any folks are here on behalf of this proclamation, please come up and
Just a few.
all right.
I recognize. Come on up here, all the way up here. I'm pretending, my shoes are deceiving. Hey, so I appreciate you all coming today. This is the County of Lake, State of California proclamation designating the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Lake County. Whereas domestic violence impacts women, children, and men of all racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds. And whereas emotional and physical scars resulting from domestic violence are often severe and long-lasting. And whereas in the past 12 months, Lake County law enforcement responded to over 253 incidences of domestic violence, including men, women, and children. In the past 12 months, the Victim Witness Division of the District Attorney's Office has served 336 victims of domestic violence. Lake Family Resource Center responded to 942 crisis line calls, served victims, and additionally sheltered 116 domestic violence victims and their children for a total of 4,292 bed nights. And whereas it is crucially important to hold perpetrators responsible for assault and to prevent domestic violence at every opportunity. Family violence is a community problem. Stopping the cycle requires not only the strength and the courage of the survivors, but also the support and the involvement of all members of the community. And whereas many organizations such as the District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office, Lakeport Police Department, Clear Lake Police Department, and Lake Family Resource Center are committed to ending domestic violence in Lake County and provide essential crisis intervention and prevention services to all members of our community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the month of October 2022 is designated as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the County of Lake, and our community is urged to support the efforts of the agencies assisting victims of domestic violence and to increase their involvement in efforts to prevent domestic violence, thereby strengthening our community and creating an environment which honors, nurtures, and protects all members of every family. Passed and adopted this 25th day of October 2022. I want to thank you all for being here today, and I want to thank you for your continued support for our community and supporting the survivors, always being here. I know you do so much, so this is for you. Appreciate all that you do. And is anyone else here want to speak? Yes? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for wearing purple. Good morning. My name is Camille. I'm with Lake Family Resource Center. I'm one of the advocates. And behind us is our lovely staff from Lake Family Resource Center. We just want to, all of us, thank all of our partners for participating in the prevention and awareness of domestic violence. I also like to bring up the survivors and the victims that did not make it for domestic violence. Because of them, we're here to participate in the prevention and the awareness of domestic violence, and we will continue to do so, and we look forward to doing this next year. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, we're blessed to have strong advocates with each and every one of you, and thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for all the work that you've done this year and that the work that you'll continue to do to support our community in the years to come.
Although they want to see you.
Oh, yes.
Apparently we're in it, so.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Moreau, before you go down, Ms. Moreau, Supervisor Pyska brought to the Board of Supervisors a while back the ability to put up a flag to celebrate certain things, and I think this is one of those that if there is an appropriate domestic violence flag, to maybe bring it to us and see if we can put it up so that we make sure that we don't just do a proclamation. We also provide that symbol outside on our flagpole to remind everybody that we need to be aware of these things happening and that we want to see it disappear and go away. Yeah.
We don't currently have one, but we'll work on it for next year.
But we will, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That goes for human trafficking as well.
If there's something appropriate and we approve it, yes.
We'll work on our flags. Thank you.
Is there anyone else like to speak on behalf of this item?
I just want to thank law enforcement. I don't want to thank the people here, obviously, but law enforcement, Lake Fork PD, the sheriff, Clear Lake PD. It's a whole system that has to do the initial response and then do the ongoing response. And we did have an incident in my neighborhood recently. It can cut across all backgrounds. Female perpetrators exist too. So it's very important work. I'm very happy that everything I've seen is our law enforcement agencies are very aggressive in getting in and doing an initial response and then all the follow-up they do. So everyone from the law enforcement to the DA to victim witness to the group we just had here, it definitely is an urgent thing in our community, and I am heartened to see the response network is there. Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is 6.3, presentation of Lake County Health Services monthly update. And it looks like we have our director, Jonathan Portney.
Dr. Carl Spohr.
And
Dr. Carl Spohr. I'm
Dr.
going to
Carl
give a
yeah.
overview of this gentleman's accolades. First, I would like to welcome Supervisor Green. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for filling a seat and representing the county, helping us move forward in the much-needed direction with the rest of the Board of Supervisors. And also, I want to give appreciation to those tuning in from the community. I'm happy you're here because your presence here helps not only keep us accountable, but help us move forward in the right direction.
Director Portney, would you like to sit up at the table, or are you fine right there? It's up to you.
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm going to try to keep it short because if I sit down, we could be here till lunch. So every other month, we try to give a public health update to the community. There's a lot to update with a little bit of time. So today, I would like to introduce Dr. Carl Spohr to provide the public health update to address some of the questions that were brought up in previous board meetings around case rate, tier, and other elements around health affecting our community. Without further ado, my name is Jonathan Portney. I'm the director of the Health Services Department, and I'm here today to introduce our interim public health director, Dr. Carl Spohr. Dr. Carl Spohr, your CV and your resume was about 32 pages, so I'm going to try to highlight just a few. Dr. Carl Spohr is a UCSF School of Medicine clinical professor in emergency medicine, UCSF School of Medicine professor at Emirates, and EMS medical director previously and currently in Alameda EMSA. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the board and the community to our interim public health director, Dr. Carl Spohr.
Thank you for the opportunity. Again, congratulations, Supervisor Green. My background is as an emergency physician, and I've been in public emergency departments in New York, New Orleans, and San Francisco for 20 years. Also worked for about 25 years with county governments and EMS and disaster, so I've got that portion of it down pretty well. I'm trying to retire from Alameda County and to my home in Sonoma, where I drove from this morning, so we're fairly local. And my public health background is fairly thin, other than like everyone else, one of you, we all pivoted toward COVID in the last 3 years. I did nothing in my entire office toward working with COVID and vaccinations and testing over the last few years, so I've learned quite a bit about public health in that process. I have the capable help of these guys behind me for lots of questions, and all the multiple meetings that CDPH seems to do with large frequency and lengthiness. So thank you for this opportunity. So with that background, I'm interim, and we'll see how that goes. And I know that you're doing a search, and good luck on that. I hope that you find a good public health officer that's local and will be able to help you full-time. But between now and then, I'm here to serve with you. I'm going to be very brief about our public health response, and anything more, we'll probably need some help from Jonathan. But as you recognize right now, COVID is waning at this moment. It's low. We're very fortunate. Should knock on wood or formica, and we'll see how that goes. We're concerned about a wave this year. I looked yesterday in my Walgreens to try to get an appointment to get my booster, and it's 5 days out before the first appointment. So people seem to be getting it, and that's what we would recommend everyone to do. Also, to go ahead and access your flu vaccine at the same time. We are low, considered in the state of DPH standards, and we're not required masking at this point, and we'll see how that changes over time. Influenza will be an issue we worry about. We haven't had any other significant variants coming from the East Coast or from Europe, but we expect probably an increase this winter as everyone gathers for the holidays. Other diseases seem to be under reasonable control at this point. We've had this one episode where we looked at the wastewater treatment monitoring of COVID. We had like a 10% increase in one of the 3 wastewater treatments. We'll watch that, see where that goes, and see if there's a trend. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Not seeing any questions.
It's
Supervisor.
just really nice to meet you.
Oh, good. And it's nice to be here. I think being here in person is always very, very useful.
Yeah, appreciate you coming.
Okay.
Supervisor Sabatier, and then
I just wanted to state that I keep track of all the data from CDPH
Yeah,
coming out.
good for you.
We've been looking really good for a while,
Yes.
which is helpful not just in what's going on, but our schools with teachers not having to leave and having no substitutes, with every business to not have to be out for 5 days or more. I think it's just really helpful to see those numbers dwindling. That means that we're all being more productive, being more able to participate in the things we want to participate in. So all of it is looking good to me, and hopefully it'll remain where that is. But what happens, happens. We'll see. But thank you very much for being here, and I know I've been in a couple other meetings with you as well. Happy to see you interact with those groups and those regional groups that we're a part of.
Good. Today I hope to meet with some of the fire chiefs and some of at the hospitals, so I have a better understanding of the location and what's going on here. Thank you.
Supervisor Green, did you have a?
Yeah, just very welcome, and not today, and you're interim, and I don't necessarily want to dump any homework on you, and of course the board has to have consensus, but I just came up from line staff. I work in county workplaces. This is a county workplace too. I'm interested as this evolves, and I know COVID-19 not your primary thing, but somewhere between shutdown and total open and low to high to medium risk, there's some evolving understanding of aerosol transmissible diseases and how we can harden our workplaces, through increased ventilation, through kind of distancing of work sites and stuff like that. I'm interested to hear about that stuff as that information filters in, just because we're going to be constantly evolving our own workplace practices, downsizing, upsizing. But I think the one thing I haven't heard yet is kind of some understanding of how we can create better, more resilient workplaces in terms of ATDs. So that's a particular interest of mine, and I'm just would love to hear some additional information about that if it ever filters down from CDPH or wherever you guys get your info from.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
I do have another question. I had pulled the COVID-19 public health emergency, and I know that our governor is planning ahead of time to go ahead and cancel that in February. I don't know if there's some ifs, ands, or buts that are aligned with that. Is it conditional? We'll find out in February if it is or not. But just kind of curious as to your thoughts on our continuing that. We still have our sheriff's emergency, which is allows us to continue the financial aspect of it. I see the public health portion of it as being giving us a capability to create our own rules and mandates and regulations, which we have none. And at one point, we just said we're aligning with the state, which now the state is aligning a little bit more with CDC. Everything's just getting looser and looser. What would your professional suggestion be? Is it necessary to keep it? Is it not a necessary tool at this moment in time since it hasn't been used for over 6 months? Just kind of curious since we had the conversation and you weren't available for that part of the conversation.
I think that actually working with the CDC and the CDPH guidelines is probably where we should go in the future. Early on in this pandemic, CDC was always like about 4 months behind. And we had to make things up along the way. That was very problematic. And then they came around and we had to rejigger it the third time. So sticking with other August resources is probably useful. And so I think you have an existing local emergency and you're probably going to need to rescind that soon, or think about how we would manage that between now and February.
Okay.
All right. With that, thank you, Dr. Swore. Welcome aboard for coming in and helping us out. And I'll open it up to the public briefly.
I do have one more.
Sure.
I just wanted to go back to Mr. Portney. Since there was a comment made in the public comment about the syringe exchange program, and I know that you brought to us a conversation about the syringe exchange program. There's been some work in the background about an MOU or a contract to try to enhance the relationship or the ability to maybe manage that relationship. Do we know where we're at with that at this moment in time?
Thank you for the question, and the MOU is still pending, and due to staff turnover, the process is in development. On November 11th, we have our Director of Nursing starting, who's going to be able to provide better oversight and management of clean needle exchange programs or syringe exchange programs. So it is still pending, and after review and onboarding of the Director of Nursing, we'll be able to report back with our success.
Thank you.
All right. Just making sure. If there's anyone from the public that would like to comment, and it looks like we have somebody.
Hello, I'm Greg Bianchini, and with Jonathan,
Greg, you can just say it.
okay, okay, with the
MOU.
MOU, I'm not sure really what that is, but maybe I could meet with you at some point with the needle exchange program.
Absolutely.
I can do that.
The door is always open, and I'll be at the office all afternoon. By all means, come through.
Okay.
The idea around an MOU is it's a memorandum of understanding, and it's somewhat like a mutual aid agreement where we set roles and expectations around a potential collaborative working relationship so that we can accomplish goals and objectives together. But by all means, come by the health department. I would like to hear your ideas around how we can make not only our department, but the system stronger.
So there isn't an MOU
Pending. MOU.
right now, though, with any positive change?
There is not.
Wow, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Come on up and state your name for the record. I see you have a, come on up.
I am Joan Moss. I'm a journalist. I learned early to get all sides of the story. And I want to mention a paper called Gateway Pundit. And there's an alternative movement going on. I hope that you both are aware of it, about Anthony Fauci and his relationship with the press, and he has resigned and he's going through a trial. Anthony Fauci. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Any other public input? And I'm not seeing any other folks coming to the microphone or any hands up in Zoom. So I will close this item as it is a report. And so with that, thank you very much. Welcome aboard again, Dr. Swore, and thank you for giving us that update. With that, we will move on to our 6.4, which is a consideration of Amendment 2 to the September 2021 Letter of Commitment between the County of Lake and Train Technologies to advance the North Lakeport Flashes Energy Disaster and Climate Change Resiliency Projects. It looks like we'll give this over to CAO Parker and Deputy CAO Officer Matthew Rothstein.
Good morning. I'm Matthew Rothstein, Deputy County Administrative Officer. Good morning, board members. Welcome and congratulations to Supervisor Green. It's a privilege, as always, to speak with you this morning. As you are aware, your board entered into a letter of commitment with Train Technologies in September of 2021 to facilitate exploration of the North Lakeport Flashes projects. In July, your board received a comprehensive update on the status of the projects, and you gave direction for staff to prepare a letter of commitment amendment to enable Train to conduct bilateral negotiations with potential project investors or financing sponsors. In July, you were informed that taking this step would increase the county's termination fee should we decide to walk away. The termination fee is increased from $100,000 to $294,800, which represents a portion under 40% of costs incurred by Train to date. The amendment before you today seeks to give the county the opportunity to succeed and see significant public benefits from the North Lakeport projects while clearly defining the county's present role and limiting county liability. Toward those ends, in collaboration with County Council, 2 new paragraphs were added to Exhibit A late yesterday, and those will be projected now. Pages 4 and 5. Under Section 3, Land Use Fee, the following language has been added. In consideration for the county's agreement to lease county property for development of the North Lakeport projects, the parties hereto understand and agree that in addition to the payment of an annual fee as described herein below, the county anticipates the realization of certain public benefits, including, but not limited to, increased wildfire resiliency, including benefits detailed in Section 4, which is also viewable in the agreement, increased energy resiliency, including the capacity for the project to serve as a microgrid for Lake County communities and critical facilities, reduced dependence on diesel backup generation, and revenue to support other public service needs. The payment of the annual fee shall be subject to the following terms and conditions, and those conditions are as described as was previously in the amendment as posted with your agenda. I'll give you a moment to look at that and also Section 4. And Section 7 has also been added, and that section is entitled County Role Defined. The parties hereto understand and agree the county's present role in any potential development of the North Lakeport projects is making county-owned property available to achieve certain public benefits, including but not limited to those described above in Section 3 of this exhibit. There is presently no expectation the county will play a more active role in the ownership and operation of this project. The county, however, reserves the right to take a more active role at a later date should the parties agree it is beneficial for specified purposes and the county determines it is in the public interest to do so. In a few moments, to provide background for you and the public, Michael Day of Train will present a high-level summary of these projects. But before we get into that presentation, I want to define the step that is before your board today. The county is contemplating making county property available for development of these projects with the expectation of realizing certain benefits, increased energy and wildfire resiliency, and county revenue. These projects have the potential to serve as a microgrid for Lake County communities and critical infrastructure, and this includes the jail, Emergency Operations Center, and potentially Sutter Lakeside Hospital. That potential is truly exciting. And Train is also representing it is reasonable to expect a financing sponsor will have interest in investing about $150 million in Lake County to develop these projects and provide public benefits, including county revenue. We had previously anticipated, as you'll recall, hosting a presentation item or workshop to further discuss criteria for a financing sponsor. After significant discussion with County Council, it was determined this was not needed and may complicate understanding of the county's role. As stated previously, it's important that the county's role is clearly defined. That was the impetus behind drafting of some of the new language. The amendment before you today is not a final agreement for development of the project. It does make clear the county's role and legal responsibilities with regard to any proposed project in Lake County do not change as a result of the fact that the county may serve as landowner for the project area. This project will go through CEQA review and other normative processes. The amendment before you today, however, does allow the process to move forward. It allows Train to use their industry expertise and understanding of the county's needs and public benefits expected to identify a financing sponsor, bring back an expression of interest from a qualified investor, and potentially ultimately a lease agreement for your board's consideration. Truly, though, these are early days. A financing sponsor has not been selected, for example. Not all elements can be precisely known. Our aim is to position the county for success while limiting county liability and encouraging community benefits. Staff finds that the amendment before you, with the noted clarifications, provides that opportunity. And I'm deeply grateful to County Council and my administrative office colleagues for their collaboration in getting us to this point. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Michael Day for a high-level summary of the projects.
Center?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Good morning, supervisors, county staff, folks from the public. I'm Michael Day. I'm with Train Comprehensive Solutions. Wanted to go through a couple of items here today. First off was a quick recap, not just for Supervisor Green, welcome aboard, but also for anybody who may be new to this. The genesis of this was in January of 2020 when the county released actually a request for qualifications in January 2020. It was a rather extensive process and review that resulted with Train's selection and validation by this board in July of 2021. Train then went into a preliminary review, and we were actually looking at a lot of different projects. We were looking at energy efficiency for county buildings. We looked at energy efficiency opportunities with special districts facilities, such as the wastewater treatment and water treatment facilities. And what we found was that those were really well run, and that a lot of the energy efficiency opportunities that you would normally find had already been done by staff, and that there was just not a lot for us to do. But where we did see an opportunity was for what we call an advanced energy project that would bring in a private party to install an energy project on county land that would be subject to certain strictures that would make it maybe not as good as it possibly could be from a financial standpoint, but in exchange for being able to use county land, it would provide substantially increased local benefits. We took a look at that in our preliminary report. It looked as if it was viable, and we came back to this board in September of last year to ask for your permission to start going after grants and really to do additional investment into that concept. As we related in July, we've been able to be successful on most of the fronts on this. The project looks to be technically viable. The project looks to be economically viable. We've done initial environmental surveys. We've done initial engineering work. We've looked at the soils. We've looked at a lot of different things, and this project looks good. The next step is for us to take it out to the investing public and to find a good fit for Lake County. And so that is where we are. As discussed long ago, when we get to a letter of commitment, and this is actually our second amendment to the letter of commitment, there are three potential outcomes from an LOC. The first one is that the project fails to meet the goals for any reason. If we run into a tiger salamander habitat, that means that it just can't be done under CEQA, and the project fails, then the project fails, and there's no cost or obligation to the district. That risk is on Train and eventually on our financing sponsor if you move forward with one. The second option is that the project meets goals, moves forward to a definitive agreement. At that point, this letter of commitment is superseded by the agreement. It moves forward into construction, and there's no cost or obligation from the county towards Train at that point because it's been superseded by what's in effect a successful agreement. The third version is that if we get to the end of this process and the project works, we've met the goals, and we've brought back investors that are willing to do so, and the county then changes its mind, in essence, and decides not to move forward with the project, at that point there would be that's when the termination fee would apply and would be paid to Train. At this point, we've looked at it. As Matthew mentioned, we have had a considerable amount of interest from the investment public, and we're ready to start taking it to investors, going through that due diligence process, and bringing you a term sheet.
All right. Ms. Grant?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whenever I hear my name mentioned, I always feel like I should speak a bit. The LOC fee is described in Section 4 of the main agreement, and as you'll see, it's been increased from $100,000 to $294,800 because of the occurrence of the triggering event. That would be the county's obligation if for some reason you just arbitrarily determine to terminate your association at this point. You'll see under number 6 that I have added a section that relates to environmental review. As your board well knows, environmental review is always discretionary. But as your board also knows, you don't take your constitutional land use authority lightly, and no agreement can appropriately co-opt your authority to act in your quasi-judicial capacity in consideration of a land use matter. So that addresses that. Also, I would just say the language that's been added is just simply to address the fact that there are a number of unknowns. At this point, the administrative staff has all good reason, I'm sure, to advance the project. It could be a huge success for the county, but there's still a lot of unknowns in terms of who's doing what when, if the county is going to be asked for additional obligations. So this agreement is now fashioned in such a way that it goes step by step by step, rather than, you've heard the expression, don't bite off more than you can chew. This is so that your board sees each step as it happens. You can assess the circumstances as it happens. And it gives you a bit more flexibility, and it protects the county from any vague terms which could certainly significantly increase the potential for liability. So that's the legal portion of this.
All right, thank you for that. Supervisor Sabatier?
So some of these questions are rhetorical, but I'm going to ask them anyways. At this moment, we would be looking at $294,000 or whatever it was, $800. If things go awry because it doesn't work, we owe nothing at that point. So the relationship breaks and there's no liability on us. We're looking to use our land, county land. Is there land that we need to acquire? I know I'm seeing letters here from neighbors at least that are talking about easements or things like that. Is there anything else that's needed as far as county land goes, or is the land already appropriated and ready to go, and it's just some ancillary things that need to be dealt with in order to have access, in order to ensure that the pipeline has the ability to go where it needs to go?
So the majority of the project would go on county land. There is a requirement for the tank and a portion of the pipeline to go on non-county land. Train has secured an option for an easement agreement with that property owner. There are a couple of alternate paths, including a potential to take it actually to the top of Poe Mountain that may be possible with another property owner, but what we have is sufficient. We will continue to work to see if we can make it better. If that ends up being something that's acceptable to that property owner and to the county, then that may be a preferable option, but there are some complications associated with it. So what we were able to do was to secure the land rights that we needed to make the project technically and financially feasible, while continuing to look at ways that we could potentially make it better over the remainder of the development process.
Okay. And in case that the complications can't be overcome, this falls again into the project can't happen, the liability on the county goes away.
Well, we have and that's the important part right now, Supervisor Sabatier, is that we have land of sufficient height and distance to do what we need to do. So technically it can work right now, financially it can work right now. If we're able to reach an agreement with, in particular, this additional property owner, potentially with the federal government and with the county, if it's acceptable to all parties, it could make the project a little bit better. And a little bit better ends up being better for the county in effectively a higher compensation rate, because it can, in essence, it lowers the cost. By having the tanks a little bit higher, the pipes can be a little bit smaller, the tank can be a little bit smaller, some reduction of cost, and that ends up, anything that reduces the cost of construction to the investor ends up leaving more money available for the county to share in.
Okay. And then the last part is just kind of something that I noticed right here while going through it. We break down in the land use fee the additional text, kind of like what are the public benefits. But the only public benefit that's really kind of hashed out is the fire protection, and that to me was more of an ancillary thing to begin with. The very first primary was to create electricity and to create resiliency. And speaking to the board, would we like to see some more details of what we would like to see coming out of the generation of power resiliency, rather than leaving it completely blank where all we end up is with a giant water tank to fight fires that, if they're not close by, is a not useful water tank for 90% of our fires. Very useful if it's in the area, in the proximity, but I don't see any details, and I know the details are probably tough, but maybe we can start at a low place so that it's easy to overcome those, but there's just no expectations within Exhibit A, and just kind of wanted to see what the rest of the board thought of that. But that's my only comment.
Any comments, Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Sabatier. Yeah, kind of noticed that. And also, yeah, I would like probably some additional detail on the benefits. I don't think it's a game changer as far as the action that's requested today, in my mind. I do appreciate the crash course I got yesterday on the aspects of this particular project, which is fascinating. I think there are some legit questions on the purported benefits. I think they will be transitioning into very real benefits for the county, but it's hard to quantify them right now. Real quick question. So would it be Train who's volunteering to be lead agency for CEQA, or are you going to allow the investors to do that?
So the investor, as we've discussed it with community development, they would be outsourcing the environmental review to a third party, and those fees would be paid for by the investor in this case.
Okay. So it'd be a third party would act as the lead agency then?
They would be, as I understand it, and this is not my particular area of expertise, they would be under contract to the county with the costs absorbed by the investor and providing the review to the county and eventually to the board for, to the regular process, County Development Planning Commission board in the regular CEQA process. But effectively that community development would be augmented for professional services by an independent third party with expertise in that area, but the cost for that would be absorbed by the investor.
Ms. Grant?
Yes, I think both the CAO and I were saying the county is going to be lead agency for purposes of CEQA because they're going to be the permitting agency. So they will be. I think perhaps, Supervisor Green, you're concerned about who's going to be the project proponent. And in that case, it will be, I'm assuming, whoever the financing sponsor is. And as far as outsourcing, as your board knows, that's a relatively standard event now for community development because of the demand on their time and review. It's still something that the community development department would bring back to your board if necessary on appeal, should there be an appeal from a planning commission decision. And that's again why that provision is in here, to protect your discretionary review of a project and make sure that that is very clearly separate and apart from any participation in this agreement because of your board's overriding justifiable concern not to compromise that constitutional power.
And I know we're very early in the planning process, so I'm not trying to lock everything down, but I do think some additional detail of the public benefits would be helpful. I don't think it has to happen today. Maybe it comes in the form of another addendum. But part of it is, one, I think if we have a better picture of those purported benefits and how they actually connect. For example, we're talking about flushing the tank in wildfire and somehow connecting up to North Lakeport through the CSD. Well, I need to hear from the CSD, and I think it's actually managed by the city of Lakeport, so it is a county CSD, but I think the city actually helps with the pipes and stuff like that. So I think for purposes of CEQA analysis and also our analysis of public benefit, it would be helpful in the future to have a better idea of the tie-in of these emergency water supplies to the district most likely to benefit, North Lakeport. But again, this is a broader county benefit. We may need to put a place on 29 where we can just fill up water trucks and send them anywhere we want on the county. In the environmental analysis, there may be, I know it's a big old tank, the big old draw up is one thing, but then we flush it in a fire and it will recharge. But say we have multiple fire events in a year, it's kind of the operational aspect of that isn't super clear to me. And again, I know it's very early in the process. The energy resiliency, the microgrid component, it sounds like the investors would end up being basically small utility operators and reach a series of contracts, perhaps with the hospital or some of these, the jail facility or something like that. Not right?
Not exactly. So the way that this works is that the financing sponsor who builds and operates this would have the position of what's called an IPP, or an independent power producer. In normal operation, they would be exporting their power to what's called an off-taker, or their counterparty in a contract called a power purchase agreement. That off-taker would be purchasing the energy, any capacity rights, renewable energy credits, ancillary services. They'd get the normal operation of that. They would be scheduling its operation on a day-to-day basis. However, in case of dark sky conditions where the Hartley and Upper Lake substations are somehow isolated from the remainder of the grid, in that case, PG&E as a distribution system operator would take over the operation and dispatch of the system. If it was going to be a relatively short type of outage, then that, like you typically see with a public safety power shutoff, assuming that there was no wind over the Hartley and Upper Lake areas, then PG&E would likely use that to keep both of those substations energized even when they would normally be off. So the majority of the times when the lights go out off the Upper Lake or Hartley substation is not due to wind immediately here. It's wind in areas where the transmission lines come in that deliver the power to those substations. In that type of situation, PG&E would have the option to keep the entire substation powered up, basically transitioning it from line voltage to the hydropower. We have sufficient power generating capability, and we have sufficient energy storage and daily production to keep those substations powered for, depending on situation, should be 24 hours or greater, which is longer than most of the PSPS events. If, however, it was going to be a longer outage, whether it was, say, a mudslide takes out a transmission line or something terrible happens, then in that case, the distribution system operator would have the ability to revert to what's mentioned in here as the critical infrastructure, which again is Northwest Wastewater Treatment Plant, jail, County Emergency Operations, Sutter Lakeside Hospital. And they would be able to carry that for a considerably longer period of time before you'd need to start firing up the diesel generators. Those decisions on how to operate it have to reside with the distribution system operator, which is PG&E. Lastly, with regards to billing, because that system is basically taking the place, in loco parentis, if you will, for PG&E's normal supply system, it would be running through PG&E's meter. PG&E would be billing those customers like they would normally be billing them, where the customer, because the electricity is coming through the PG&E meter.
So quick follow-up question then.
Sure.
So the big chunk of change the county's going to get from the property lease, and there will be a purported community benefit in having electricity when we need it during these critical events. But to the extent some of that emergency power gets juiced over to county facilities, the county's still going to be on the hook for the normal, we're still going to pay for that electricity, right?
You're still going to pay for that electricity. Your meter would turn like your meter would normally turn. It's just the source of the meter coming into that power would be coming from the investor's hydro turbine instead of coming from another source.
A little bit of Robin Peter Fay Paul, but I accept at face value the purported benefits of this. I do think some additional clarity in Exhibit A would benefit this project moving ahead, but I don't think it's mission critical to today. Thank you.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I just wanted to add a little bit more detail, because I think it's difficult to say you will provide this much power, but I think detailing what occurs during a power outage, that the electricity doesn't get sent to Sonoma, is important to me, that we don't create this so that we stay dark while someone else gets the electricity. I mean, we all know CAISO is selling stuff to Idaho while we're having rolling blackouts. I just want to make sure that type of situation can be written into our exhibit to say, maybe not a specific amount. If we can, that's awesome, but during these situations, that this will be available for us to create energy for local benefit, and that's not in there necessarily in that, in those types of words.
Ms. Grant?
If I could answer. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ms. Grant.
I will tell you that one of the reasons why the language in Exhibit A3 has been adjusted is to make it very clear that the public benefit is part of the consideration that your board is considering in terms of leasing this property. So additional terms should fall within the terms of that lease when it comes to those public benefits. Again, it's added to give you that flexibility as this progresses, because as all of you have pointed out, there's still a great deal of unknowns here. It shouldn't stop you from moving forward, but it will inform your choices as you move on.
Go ahead, Matthew. Yes.
So, Ms. Grant, with regard to adding additional detail on the energy as like the matters that Supervisor Sabatier raised, are you recommending that those would be included in the lease agreement itself, or that they would still be added to Exhibit A here?
I don't think at this point it needs to be added to Exhibit A, because part of what's going to inform your board going forward with a lease is with whom you're entering into the lease and exactly what their role is. And financing sponsor covers a lot of ground. It also is going to, it remains to be seen whether the county is going to want to participate in a more comprehensive manner, and that will also adjust the terms. So I think that what you might want to add here is including but not limited to increased energy resilience, a commitment of increased electrical availability in Lake County or something. I'm sure Matthew and Mr. Day can come up with the terms, but I think you can add it as a prong without having to go into any detail, just to let them know that part of what motivates your board moving forward and part of what you're considering as consideration for a potential lease is primarily the benefits to the public, which includes maintaining a certain amount, if that's possible at this point. But language could be devised, just briefly to reference it.
And Mr. Day, you wanted to comment, or did you?
Sure. One of the questions that you had, Supervisor Sabatier, was if there's a blackout in the area, making sure that it's not exported to Sonoma while the local substations are without power. And for this, I wanted to bring up, this is the GIS map of the major trunk lines for the California electric grid. As you'll remember, we're feeding the Hartley substation, which covers about 2/3 of the town of Lakeport, and the Upper Lake substation, which covers about half of Upper Lake and actually reaches all the way into Mendocino County. Those substations are fed primarily by this large transmission line coming from the Williams area, and then it's possible for it to be backfed from this transmission line that goes up Hopland, Cloverdale, Ukiah area. But in general, if these transmission lines are shut down, which is what produces a local electrical shutdown in most cases, then there's no way for the electricity to get out of here. So it's not something where they could say, well, we're going to keep you blacked out and ship the power over here. The only way that could happen would be if there was actually a wind polygon over this area and the whole substation was shut down because the wind was here. And in that case, you wouldn't want it energized anyway. So just the nature of the fact, if we were going to the distribution system, if we were intertying on the distribution system, then what you're talking about would be a real consideration. But because of the fact that we're going to the distribution substations, the only way it can get out is if you keep the town lit up, if possible.
Ms. Grant?
Then even if it's not necessary, if your board felt more comfortable, you could add to number 3, where it says in parens, including the capacity for the project to serve as a microgrid for Lake County with coverage priority for county communities and critical facilities.
Yes.
And I was thinking exactly just adding 1 or 2 words to that, saying maybe also during power outage instances or something like that. And I think that would be a simple fix that covers and makes me more comfortable that this is definitely something we're looking to attain.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just a procedural question, and I think there's some other quick fixes that go in there, like if Section 4 is a benefit section, it's labeled fire protection. So just in terms of process, if we were to, just in the efficiency of time, if we were to trail this matter to allow Matt and Mr. Day to confer and just come back with some suggested language, it may be just 1 or 2 sentences, but I think it might be more than that. Would it be helpful if you guys just had a little time to confer to do what you could do to pump up Exhibit A so we're not just throwing sentences at you and bring you back a little bit later this morning?
I'd be interested in Ms. Grant's opinion on that.
I don't actually have an opinion on that. If you want to work on language, it's up to your board whether you want to give them time, and I'm certain they can come up with something. I would suggest that your board may want to clarify exactly what you're talking about, because changes to language can get carried away. So you've mentioned essentially for number 3 that including the capacity for the project to serve as a microgrid for Lake County with coverage priority for county communities and critical facilities during times of power outages.
And I'm good on that.
Yeah, I appreciate the flexibility that this letter of commitment has in Exhibit A. I think the details here in item 3 are appropriate, but I think it's time to move forward, and more details can be hammered out in the lease agreement when we get to that point.
If you do have, however, suggestions for number 4, fire protection, you may want to indicate to both Matthew and Michael what language you'd like to shore up, just so that they don't overshoot or undershoot whatever is.
Supervisor Sabatier and then Supervisor Green.
I'm good with what it is, but I do like the amendment to Section 3 in the parentheses. I think it's simple, but it states exactly what we're looking for. Number 4 covers, I think, enough. The more detail we get into it, the more difficult it is to meet any specifics while we're still kind of in a prospective situation. And we can hammer out more details later on. But that part was important to me mainly because of conversations I had with the wind generators over in on the Calusa line on Walker Ridge, where in my conversations, I saw no local benefits coming from that, and I want to make sure that it's written in there for this. So that was my intent, and I think that covers my intent and my comfort.
Supervisor Green, did you have anything?
Well, it sounds like there's consensus to move on this without any further amendment, and that's fine, because again, I think where we're at in this project and the ask, and I know there's some time sensitivities the train has on this, so I'm totally okay with moving this forward. But I do think as this project moves forward again, when it comes back again, when we are talking about leases or another addition, better defining the downstream stuff, the connection to the North Lakeport CSD, how these microgrids are going to work. You mentioned 2 very different situations, so I think being able to better define the resiliency as far as energy, I think, is definitely going to help move this forward, not just for the county, but for your investors. So thank you.
And just a quick next step question. What does your potential timeline looks like in coming back to us, getting investors and whatnot? Is there a timeline already kind of set in line or in mind?
Well, it's somewhat complex in that I think that it's certainly our goal to bring a term sheet, which is the offer to move forward, and has these different elements defined. It's our goal to bring that back before the end of the year. We'll see, what's that for? No battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. And to be honest, this is the first of the projects that we're working on that'll reach this stage. So there is some uncertainty there. But it's our goal. We're not exactly sure how long the due diligence process is going to take. People understand water tanks. People understand PV. People understand pumped hydro. But this version of putting those, it's a new arrangement of well-known Lego blocks, I guess, would you say. So it'll remains to be seen how long that due diligence is going to take. I can tell you that there's a lot of interest. So we should be able to find, we have a lot of people who are interested, a lot of firms that have a lot of experience in this space. So lack of interest is not our problem.
Vice Chair Pyska.
And I was contacted by a few people that heard stories on NPR in the last couple of weeks about it, and I'm very excited about this type of project.
What?
Seriously. One person in Southern California, one person up here.
Wow.
Water storage batteries.
Yeah, that's us.
NPR.
I didn't know. Okay.
Someone else was interviewed.
All right, with that, it looks like we have our questions. We'll open it up to the public, and it looks like we have someone in the chambers who would like to comment. Please come up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and we'll start your 3 minutes.
Joan Moss, member of the public. I am looking at all my papers that I have not thrown away, and I have something very interesting. Community experiences and perceptions of geothermal venting and emergency preparedness in Lake County, California. This includes our Department of Public Health, the State Department of Public Health, the CDC Health Studies Division and Environmental Health and Health Effects, Air Pollution and Respiratory Health Branch. Granted, this is from 2012. But when I am recently a member of the Biohazard Research Committee looking at hazards in Lake County that need to be addressed in case of an emergency. And I'd like someone to make a copy of this so I can keep what I have. We have never heard this, what these people are telling us about the vents and the hazards in Lake County. And I would like, I only have 3 minutes.
Joan, I'm wondering how.
But I would
it
like to
pertains.
submit this.
Joan, how does this pertain to this project?
Yes, because it's emergency preparedness, water supply. It pertains to a lot of departments, and no one had heard of this. This was accomplished back in 2012, and it questions a lot of things.
So I think, Joan, I think that's a document maybe you can submit to administration. They'll make a copy. When we get further in the process, we'll look at it.
Yeah,
Or they'll look at it and add
hope you can make a
it to
copy of
the,
this for when you go through the environmental questions,
that's
because you
what
need
we'll
to
do.
answer it. Thank you, Matthew, thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Are there any other public comments in regard to this item on the agenda? I'm not seeing anyone in the chambers. And I'll bring it back to the board, close public input, and we'll go from there.
There's nothing further. Honorable Chair, I move we approve Amendment 2 to the September 2021 Letter of Commitment between the County of Lake and Train Technologies to advance the North Lakeport Flashes Energy, Disaster, and Climate Change Resiliency projects.
Second.
With amendments or
With
not?
amendments, yeah.
As amended.
As amended.
Because yes, as amended. Thank you.
And a
Second.
second. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Day, Mr. Rothstein. I keep saying Rothstein, so I apologize.
We learn.
And Doug, thank you for making the trip out as well. So with that, we will take a short break.
Time's up.
Yep, it's my time.
Perfect
My time's up. So we'll take a short break, come back at 10:30, and we'll go from there on the next item on the agenda. All right. All right, welcome back from our break. We'll move on to our 6.5, public hearing, consideration of proposed rezone, RZ 22-01, and general plan amendment, GPA 22-01. Applicant is Valerie Peng. Project located at 11377 Highway 29, Lower Lake, APN 049-300-02. And we have community development here as well. But I just wanted to note, the project is in the Supervisor Simon's district, and he is not with us today. Commonly, I know as the board, we usually continue this for when he's at a date where he can be here to address this item. However, I know this is a public hearing, so wanted to see if there was any comments or anyone here would like to speak on behalf of this item before we make a decision to move it to a later date and go from there. Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Good morning, Supervisors.
There you go.
Good morning. I just would like to make a few comments on
Can
the
you state your name for the record for us?
My name is Valerie Peng, and the project is basically a rezone to develop a dispensary in the future. Basically, with the commissioners, I did a presentation on vertical integration the last time I was here, and have been kind of involved in the Cannabis Task Force and the Cannabis Program Task Force that they have going on, which it is now the vision and mission to support fully vertically integrated cannabis businesses. So this project would give me the opportunity to basically be fully vertically integrated in Lake County, rather than have other pieces of my business in other counties, so that Lake can really benefit from the tax all the way through, and the community can also benefit from having access. I would also like to state that I am I've been in Lake County for around 35 years, and I've been working really hard towards creating a really strong cannabis business, and I've been pretty successful in that. And vertical integration does not only need actual physical businesses, but it also needs brand assets to Lake County to increase the vibration of the cannabis industry in general as a whole. As we are looked at as a very almost like wine country, we are definitely wine and weed country now in Lake County. So as we move forward towards ecotourism and things like that, we need to have a higher vibration for our brand awareness and different things like that. I do bring to the table a huge buying budget for brands all over California. I support 10 to 15 cultivations here in Lake County. By buying and making sure that they are supported financially. We have supply contracts and a ton of other things going on in the background that not everybody understands what a cannabis business is today and how it will be moving towards different ventures in the future. So I hope that I have the opportunity to have the rezone and to be fully vertically integrated in Lake County. It would increase my ability to be packaging at my facility across the way. It would bring more jobs and just more viability to the cannabis community in general. Also, the dispensary has we have a business model that was modeled out of Berkeley for a delivery, and also is modeled in Napa County as well.
Ms. Peng, you'll have a better opportunity when we bring this back to
Yeah.
kind of go over a lot of this, so, because we're going to more than likely continue this.
Oh, okay, the full thing to be continued.
Right, and so
Okay.
you'll have your opportunity to give us this presentation, or even another presentation if you have, but right now, we just wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to say, and so from that point, we'll see if there's anyone else that wants to comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board for action for a later date.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else from the public that'd like to speak on this item? I'm not seeing anyone in Zoom or in the chamber, so I'll bring it back to the board for action. And so with action on this, is this, would we have to select a date? Okay,
Date and time certain, please.
okay.
Well, you don't have to, but they'll have to renotice and they'll need additional time, so to avoid that.
We just do it. I don't know if community development had any ideas as to possibly,
We're ready to present at the board's convenience, so any date where there seems to be time open works great for us.
Johanna, what dates do you think would fit?
We can do it next week if that works for everybody at 10:30. November 1st at 10:30.
I think that works. And then what I'm thinking about is the supervisor, Moak, potentially with the given situation, if he may not be able to come to the next meeting. So I'm thinking about that, just as you said that, I thought about it, and I'm thinking that it might need another week, just in case. And the other, it just clicked in my mind. Supervisor Spatier?
Is it possible to put it on for the following week, find out as soon as possible, and if it doesn't happen, we can just do this again to continue it? That way we can get to a conclusion if it's possible next week?
So do the first, just in case?
Why don't we just plan for the 8th?
The 8th?
If there's time and that gives him.
Yeah. Johanna, is that a good date?
The 8th at 10:30, does that work? Okay.
Okay. Does that work? Okay, so we'll do the 8th at 10:30. That gives us the time to ensure that we'll have Supervisor Simon here as well, so. Yeah. All right. Ms. Grant, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Did you do a motion that I missed?
Not yet, but we will.
Mr. Chair, I move to continue this public hearing to November 8th at 10:30 a.m.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. We will conduct this item on November 8th at 10:30. Thank you very much, Community Development Department. And ma'am, thank you for coming out. We'll see you on the 8th at 10:30. All right. That covers our timed items for today. Any preference, CAO Parker, on which way we go here?
No, the next two items are mine, so.
Okay, so let's go with 7.2, consideration of restructuring the administrative office to include positions specifically focused on economic development and housing. CAO Parker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you may recall, during the budget hearings, I was given direction to look into the possibility of developing a housing and economic development division. Upon reviewing our structure and a pending vacancy and a current vacancy, I recommend the following. We convert the tax administrator position and the part-time position formerly held by Michelle Scully into a full-time DCAO, Deputy County Administrative Officer, and over housing, and then there would be a management analyst supporting that person, and that would be someone that's currently within our department who will be reassigned to those duties. The second part of it is for the economic development programs, would be a new position, or actually I did it the opposite way. One would be a new position that would look at helping to develop the economic development strategic plan and all that entails, and also an administrative analyst to support that program. So it'd be 4 positions, 2 are dedicated to housing and 2 are dedicated to economic development. The one with the conversion of the tax administrative position cannot begin until January. So I did make a recommendation for housing to start first, but of course I will defer to the board. I'm hoping that the housing program will develop a housing opportunities master plan that will expand and look at affordable housing, essential housing, workforce housing, and hopefully to a point, an overall comprehensive program that could shift to CDD for them to assume, but I think we'll be the incubator for developing that program, so then it will go to what I believe is the natural place for it to be. The cost, we estimate, because we don't have what the benefits would, the total cost of benefits, because we don't know what insurance they're going to have or what program they're going to have or what unit they're going to belong to. We estimated about $219,827 plus benefits. That does include, supplies and desks and computers and training. So I'm here to answer any questions. Again, we haven't developed the job descriptions yet. We'll do that if we're given direction to do so and move forward. And we also are currently developing the scope of work for the Economic Development Strategic Plan to go out. And hopefully we'll have that released before we hire this person, so they'll have something to work with.
Vice Chair Pyska?
Yes.
I think,
sorry.
yeah, I'm excited to have these positions allocated to do the work that we've prioritized for a while now, and funding sources that we've been working on for a while now too. So very, very excited, very supportive of this. I just have a question about the housing plan. We do have housing programs in different departments and with social services. So I'm wondering, is this going to finally bring all the housing programs together eventually?
That is the goal eventually. And I think initially we'll start, because that'll be part of the comprehensive plan. And I know Ms. Turner's here, and I know we have been discussing this for about 2 to 3 weeks. So I'd be more than, if you'd like to, I'm sorry, Chair. Since we've been talking, she might want to have something, she may have something to add to this. But I think, yes, eventually Section 8 and other housing programs, because you need a coordinated effort so you don't duplicate or replicate services provided, and it becomes more efficient.
Mireya Turner, Community Development. This is really exciting. We definitely need the housing. We have had discussions, and I actually have an appointment to speak with the Social Services Director this week regarding the Section 8 or the Housing Commission. I recently was completing a survey for RCRC about housing and ended up having a great discussion about the limitations for our Housing Commission right now because of their current position within the Social Services Department. And there is just a lot more we could be doing. So we hopefully will be working in tandem. This incubator is awesome, and then eventually it'll all come back together.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Thank you, CAO Parker, for bringing this to us based on our request during the budget meetings. This is a proactive approach to dealing with things right now that we've kind of been waiting for natural growth from people moving in and deciding to build. Here, we're going to be looking to make it happen and inviting developers to us. And that's just for the housing part. The economic development offers so much more. I think this is the start. I don't know that this team will be enough once we really get the wheels going, but I think we need to start somewhere, and this is a great place to start. How much did we set aside in ARPA? Was that $700,000?
Oh, no, he's not here. I know in the housing, we have almost 2 million.
Was it
set
2 million?
aside. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And there he is.
Go ahead, Stephen, if you can
It looks like
unmute.
he's either saying peace or 2 million.
2 million, sorry.
2 million.
Stephen said 2 million.
Or he was saying I got it right.
Yes. Well, that's good. So that means that there's a lot of opportunity to, actually, it needs to be spent by the end of 2024. So that is a different conversation. But no, I think this is a great start. I guess I have a random question. Logistics, where?
Where are we going to put them?
Yeah.
So I'm moving staff. You may have noticed that our lobby and administration is a little different than it was. We were moving desks. I do have a place not only for this person, but with the exodus of Mr. Sullivan, who might migrate a little earlier with his office. So those are 2 offices right there, and the analysts will figure out. But I think we have some opportunities. Stephen and I are looking at possibilities, but we're not going to let that hold up moving forward. So.
One last comment. You mentioned trying to get the RFP out so that we
Yes.
can get something for them ready to go.
Yes.
I'm wondering, is that the right approach, or do we wait till we have that professional who has a bit more understanding and concepts of what those strategic plans are so that they can help us build it rather than having it ready to go? Just kind of not sure, just putting it out.
Right. I think that in order to keep the momentum, that I can probably craft some assistance with some other groups, and Stephen was at some training last week. I think we can tap some of that energy to go forward. And we could even phase the RFP. The first part could be the second assessment, and the second part could be the actual development of the plan, so they'll have an opportunity. And when you have an RFP, if the scope, is modified or added to, then we'll do an addendum to the RFP. But I would like to see us get started on this sooner than later, because there is a lot of money through EDA coming down too, and I want to put us in that position, in a good position.
Okay.
But of course, I will defer to the board.
Director Metcalf, and then after we'll open it up for Crystal Martin. But go ahead, Director Metcalf.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, board. I just kind of want to piggyback on what Supervisor Pyska was saying, that I'm hopeful that this will be all of the housing activities in the county would be centralized, and I would ask that some consideration be made about the administration of the housing continuum of care. As your board knows, my department oversees all of those activities, and it's there's a lot going on there, and so I would hope ultimately, eventually, that would also be folded into this. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Marketan? There you go.
I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Not really. I'm not sure what the issue is. I don't know if you're on a microphone or a phone or. Be there now?
Yes, can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay. I just wanted to comment. I saw this on the agenda, and I think it's overdue in this county. As your board is aware, I've brought this to the board on at least 2 separate occasions. The housing programs that DSS has, which include Section 8 and the home loan program, have been here for around 10 years. We subsidize those. Over the last 10 years, about $650,000 of DSS realignment have gone into those programs. And they would be far better managed in by a comprehensive housing department, essentially, for that county. And so I'm really excited to hear about this. We will do whatever we need to do to partner to make that happen. And I think the main thing that really is relevant here is that, in coordinating housing within the county, we can better meet the housing needs that are out there. And we know that they definitely exist at this point. So DSF is more than happy to provide information and partner as this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll open it up to the public briefly. I think I don't see any hands up aside from the one that was just there. And I'm not seeing anyone in the chambers or in Zoom, so I'll bring it back to the board.
Just direct staff.
Yeah. So, yeah, are we?
Consensus?
Do we have
Yes?
consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Thumbs up.
To, begin the process and then develop the necessary documents for approval. I think we're all on board with that? No, it's a consensus because it's just direction, so, all right. I think we're good on that.
I want to give Todd a hard time, but I won't. Tell him that he'll still have Collier.
Oh.
Because I know he wants to give that up really bad.
Thanks for that.
7.3, consideration of a memorandum of understanding between Lake County and Golden State Connect Authority to engage consultants and implement the local agency technical assistance grant by undertaking responsibility for performance of the grant-funded work and authorize the chair to sign. And CAO Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very excited to bring this item forward. As you may recall, in August, your board approved a resolution and we submitted the application for the $500,000 grant to pursue fiber design for our broadband program. And we received a notice last week. This is the next step. It's an MOU with the Golden State Connect Authority. They will then contract with a vendor and start the design. And we'll coordinate. The reason this is very exciting is there's another program that's going on right now, and that is this Thursday we will be selecting the implementation consultant for broadband to move forward to update our master plan, and then incorporate the design and develop that timeline and a plan to implement broadband countywide. So this is all coming together all at once, and that's why it's very exciting. It's one of those economic goals this board has been, seeking to achieve since I've been here. So it's very exciting.
All right. Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, no, this is very exciting, something that we need. I just wanted to make sure, and I'm thinking this is going to be through RCRC because we're kind of all streamlining through that pipeline.
Yes.
But I was on a call yesterday for a bunch of federal programs that are happening. I just want to make sure that it's on their radar, not just something that we have to take care of on our own. But there's the, I'm not going to be able to tell you what the acronym stands for, but it's the BEAD. Has $42.5 billion, and allocations are expected to automatically happen, I believe, in 2023 and 2024, so that'll give us a whole chunk of change. And then the FCC is doing a broadband data collection, and as of November of 2022, there's going to be a review period for the locations of where their information is. We need to challenge those if there's a reason to challenge those. And I was telling them that we're kind of in the works of gathering that data. How do we challenge it? But there's only a specific timeline to challenge the FCC. So I just wanted to make sure that that was on your radar in case that we can get RCRC to maybe help us out with whatever that is. It's 10 megabytes, upload, download, whatever. Right. So we'll be able to challenge the location of where broadband is available. We'll be able to challenge the data capacity for that broadband, and those will come in 2 separate reviews, but the first one starts in November 2022. But I think that having RCRC to help us out has been absolutely crucial, but things are coming down.
Yes, if I may, Chair.
Yes.
Barbara Hayes from RCRC has been helping us, hand-holding through this process since they have the technical expertise and we do not. So I'm very grateful for RCRC in helping us get this far in this process.
Right. Any other comments or questions from the board? Open it up to the public. And not seeing any hands up in the public or on Zoom. So we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the memorandum of understanding between the County of Lake and Golden State Connect Authority to engage consultants and implement the local agency technical assistance grant by undertaking responsibility for performance of the grant-funded work and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. All right. Next, 7.4, the consideration of a side letter to the Lake County Correctional Officer Association Memorandum of Understanding, October 21st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. And this is HR Pam Samick, HR Director. And
is she on?
She is. She's not. She's an attendee, not a panelist.
Oh, I see. Oh, and there's Norm Taylor as well. Yeah, and there's Pam as well. So we'll go ahead and open it up to Captain Taylor.
Good morning, Board. I wanted to take an opportunity to thank HR, both Pam Samick and Diana Rico, brought this to the association and at my request. It's a pretty straightforward adjustment of the MOU and some of the protocols that had been in place previously that weren't codified in any sort of MOU or procedure. So we wanted to go ahead and go through the process, give the association an opportunity to weigh in on some readjustment of how we assign deputies. And so we did that and came up with this letter. Be willing to answer any questions you have regarding that.
All right, thank you on that. Pam, do you have anything to add on that?
No, that's consistent with how we came to terms on this.
All right. Supervisor Spatier.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know the basic concept here is to move people around and not have them get stuck into special assignments. But what I don't see is what if somebody actually enjoys their special assignment? It says here that no more than 4 years. Is that just not something that's realistic that has ever happened, that somebody actually enjoys their special assignment?
Well, most certainly. The special assignments are something that are sought after, and they certainly develop our personnel. They tend to have set days and with weekends off, holidays off, not working nights, and so forth. Unfortunately, that isn't the primary role of a deputy sheriff of corrections. And with assigning someone to a special assignment without having any term end, what we end up seeing is a loss of ability to do their basic roles and functions here in the jail. And so a period of 4 years without doing some of the more mundane and regular duties would anyone would deteriorate on their abilities to keep up with the changes and procedures.
But also, out of fairness, it gives other people the opportunity to get into a special assignment and learn that skill set. So whether or not they enjoy it, out of fairness, then everybody can participate on a rotating schedule.
Okay. Just thought I would ask, since I didn't see the ability for like an exception to keep going, just in case no one else volunteered for it or something like that.
That is some wording in there, but they're toward the bottom, I believe, of one of the paragraphs. If we do not have a qualified person to replace the staff member that's working in a position, then management would review that on an annual basis to ensure that there isn't someone who seeks to fill that role and is qualified.
Okay, I didn't see that as an exception, but I appreciate the clarification.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll open it up to the public. Not seeing any in the chambers or online. I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the side letter for the Lake County Correctional Officer Association MOU from October 21st, 2021 to June 30th, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you, Captain Taylor. Thank you, Director Samick. And we'll move on to our next item. 7.5, consideration of the following advisory board appointments: Lakeport Fire Protection District Board of Directors, Lucerne Area Town Hall, and Lower Lake Cemetery District. And should we continue the Lower Lake Cemetery District? And I know Lakeport's in your district. You're comfortable with moving forward today? Okay. And I will go ahead and state the person that I would like to choose for Town Hall would be Melanie Lim, out of the two that are listed. And I think there's just one for the fire board, right? I think it's just,
technically, I didn't get the last part of the agenda packet printed out, and I apologize. I'm going to have my tablet next time. I'm going to be all organized. If there is just one applicant listed, then obviously that's going to make any discussion easy. And I was the liaison to the fire district when I was on council. They are going through a time of transition. Their new chief starts on November 1st. Very excited to see that coming on. But we need a full board to support that new chief. So totally willing to move ahead with the proposed application.
okay. I'll open it up to the public briefly in case there's any comments about the applicants. And not hearing any, I'll bring it back to the board for action, and we can make this all in one motion. No, actually, okay. So for the Lucerne Area Town Hall, if someone can make that motion for me. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, Lakeport Fire Protection District, we'll start with yours because it's at the top, so.
All right, well, I don't have a motion in front of me. I'm not even sure which applicant I'm
William
purporting.
Gabe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which one?
William Gabe.
Is that on my list? I can't even, oh, Gabe.
Yeah.
Wilhelm Gabe. I guess we just moved to approve the application for the board.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to appoint William Gabe to the Lakeport Fire Protection District. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. And then,
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint Melanie Lim to the Lucerne Area Town Hall.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. And we will continue and postpone the Lower Lake Cemetery District to a later date, either next week or the week after, and we'll go from there. So that closes that. It looks like next will be our calendars. And so we will start with Supervisor Sabatier. Are you ready?
Sure, why not? Tomorrow I have a special meeting for LTA. I believe it's supposed to be closed session only, so not even sure what we will be discussing until it happens. Then it looks like there's a Zoom meeting for the website reveal, which would tell me that soon we will be able to bring that to the board to showcase the work that's been happening in the background for a while. I have a First Five commission meeting over at the LCOE Lakeport facility, Lake County Fire District Protection or Fire Protection District board meeting that I will probably attend via their virtual capacity, and then a KUSD board meeting for Canocta Unified. Thursday, I'll start off with Judge's Breakfast. Thank you very much to Ms. Grant for being the guest at the last week's Judge's Breakfast. Got a free breakfast, I hope, out of that.
Cup of coffee.
A cup of coffee. Good enough. And then I have a Hope Rising board meeting, then a Lake County Solid Waste Task Force. I don't know that I've received anything for that yet, but it's on my calendar.
It's on mine too.
Okay, so must be happening. And then I need to check on this invitation. Got invited to an Elder Circle planning meeting from Behavioral Health. Just want to make sure it's appropriate for me to be there. Then I have, what's this here? I don't know what that is, so I'm just not going to say anything quite yet about that. Then I have another Hope Rising subcommittee meeting happening on Friday, meeting with Lakeport students through an invitation for the ACT program that Hope Rising is operating. I forget what ACT program stands for, but it's basically, it's like a youth city council. I'm sure that you've seen them. And the youth reached out and wanted to speak with me. And then
better bring your A game. They're good.
They'll tell me apart, tear me to pieces. And then I have a housing navigation meeting later on in that afternoon. And I believe I'm doing trunk or treat that Saturday in Clear Lake that the city is putting on. So come get your candy in Austin Park. I'm sure it'll probably start at around 5 p.m. I don't have the dates, but I will be there. And then looks like I only have the interim CAO meeting on Monday at this moment in time, and then back here for the
Interim?
Sorry. Well, that's what it says, because we need to ask staff to change that. I apologize.
We need to talk to your chief of staff.
My chief of staff will work on it, then it'll never change. And then back here on the 1st for our board meeting. Now I'm embarrassed.
That's always my excuse. I'm going to fire my chief of staff. I don't have one.
I'm glad I'm not the only one with that on my calendar.
We'll go with Supervisor Green.
My calendar is so wide open. It's scary. And I know it will fill up because that's the scary part. I know there's plenty of committees waiting desperately to get me appointed to them. And I've already blown off 2 meetings Monday. I was not a supervisor yesterday, so I feel good about blowing them off, but I don't think I'll be able to do that. So my immediate supervisor will probably be banging on admin for help and assistance. Moak's not here. I may be moving into his office. I don't know. But in the early days, as I've told a couple people, I'm just really going to be focused on constituent outreach, meeting the people I need to meet in the district. And they have certainly not been shy as of yet, beating their way to my email and to my door. So I was very excited to hear all you guys get very excited about a couple of these previous agenda items. So I will add I'm very excited to be here, very excited to be working with all of you. You're the hardest working supervisors I know. And that's no diss to some other people I've seen in action, both here in Lake County and outside the county, and just really excited for what lies ahead. I did have a question, because one of the first things you sent, Susan, was CSAC, and I noticed we have a meeting set that week. So I didn't know if the normal thing was on board the new guy, or if we are planning to meet that week, or if there's going to be a bigger presence at CSAC on the week of November 11th, 14th?
I'm going. It's the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's like the 18th or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it just looked chock full of exciting things. There was like a new soups thing, but I'm not an elected, I'm an appointed, so I put it out in an email to CSAC.
You should do it.
Well, I want to make sure I'm eligible to do it.
You are.
So.
You are. That's what it's for.
I definitely would.
You should do
Yeah,
it.
I'm not elected. Okay, so assuming I'm eligible to go to that, definitely want to put that on my calendar, but it looks like a whole week of stuff. And in truth of disclosure, I just got through 2 years on council without ever having to go to a League of California Cities event, which was really good for me because I had a bone to pick with the league, having to do with my past days of cannabis advocacy and their role in local control and banning everything. So I managed to dodge that bullet, but it sounds like you guys are very excited too about CSAC and RCRC and stuff like that. So I'm really going to have to build on my excitement. So I do, pending other direction and other needs, I am anticipating going down there for the full week and getting immersed.
We were in classes with people that were appointed, so you should go.
Okay, then I'll be working with Susan and staff to get myself down there. Other than that, I don't have anything firm on the calendar. So if you guys need to bring something back, like I know you guys were divvying up those emergency calls, so hopefully you guys are off the hook on that now.
I also have, the Zoom link that I can give to you for your Scotts Valley Advisory Committee as well, so that'll be.
Yeah, so I don't know how much of those need to come back, since I know you brought them to the board in a certain sense. I don't know if they have to come back to the board, so whatever you got to do to unwind the interim nature of what you guys were covering, let's do that sooner rather than later. And that's my calendar for now.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so tomorrow morning I have agenda review. The air curtain burner is getting fired up by South Lake Fire for the first time for the fall. So there's a lot of wood that's been accumulating. That's going to go from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that's really exciting. At 11:30, I have our home hardening meetings have turned to biweekly with NCO and Cal OES. Thursday, meeting with the CPUC Commissioner, governing board meeting for Area on Aging. Friday, I know all of us were invited to speak with the realtors, so I'm going to do that for us. And I have a meeting with our weekly tree meeting with Scott and the Connaughton Fire Safe Council. Gosh, I have no events this weekend. And then
Come to trunk or treat.
that's okay. I'm good. I'm going to enjoy this weekend with my family. Meeting on Monday with CAO Parker, and then, of course, it is Halloween, so I will be out and about avoiding peanuts like nobody's business. I'm back here on the 1st.
All right. Tomorrow we have agenda review, and then the website, what is it called? The website review or reveal. That's what I know. I didn't want to say the wrong word, but yes, website reveal. Thursday, we have I have a meeting with the CPUC meeting, right? Mm-hmm. That's in the morning, and then after that, Lake County Solid Waste, AAA Governing Board, and then I'll be meeting at Clogba for Clear Lake Oaks Glen Haven Business Association. They have a monthly meeting, and so I'll be there. I think Congressman Thompson will be there, so it'll be an interesting one. Friday, I'll be meeting with the group Flock. I'm looking to try and reposition some cameras that are redundant, and so got some areas that have high need. I've already put in requests to them, but I really need to get these associated in different areas so that we can help. The dumping issue is still going on despite the cameras, but at the same time, if we can get these positioned properly, it can help with some of that. Won't say the areas, but we'll go with that. Let's see. Monday, CAO meeting, and then back here on Tuesday for the Board of Supervisors meeting.
Do you mind if I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, in case people are listening, I know everybody's receiving their property tax bills. I've already received some phone calls about that. I would say please call the assessor's office to understand why changes have occurred. If you have questions, I know I'm not able to respond and give you specifics, but I know that last year that helped out a lot of people in understanding why changes, maybe large changes occurred. I know that people are reaching out to their supervisors, but we don't always know the exact specifics as to why something has occurred. So if you have questions, please call the assessor's office. Thank you.
All right, with that, we will go into closed session. Our 8.1 is conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2E1, one potential case. And I'll reread 4.2, which is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D1, City of Clear Lake versus County of Lake et al. And with that, we'll go into closed session, and we'll see you afterwards. Thank you.